I'm here with Carol Cleveland, who is a member of the Monty Python troupe. Do you call yourself a troupe? Is it
Monty Python silly people troupe thing?
And the first person, did you call yourself? We are the Flying Circus.
No, other people might have, but no, I don't think we thought of ourselves as being anything other than just very silly people, really.
And how did you get involved?
Well, I was doing a lot of work at the BBC. Working with various different comics like Spike Milligan and others that you may or may not have heard of, Ronnie Barker, Ronnie Corbett, the two Ronnies exactly, and a load of others. And I was, well, as I've described it, apparently this is my expression, a glamour stooge. So it meant I wasn't actually saying very much, but there was a lot of bosom on display and what have you. And I remember one particular comic called Charlie Drake, who was a very little person. The sketch was just him with his nose in my cleavage, and that's about all I was doing at the time. But I was doing a lot of that at the BBC, and I hadn't met any of the Pythons. I knew who they were. I'd seen other work they'd done, but I hadn't met them or worked with them. And they were putting the show together, and they'd only written 5 episodes at that point, 5 of the 12. And they were looking around the director, well, it was the producer actually, was looking for a female to be in 4 of these 5 episodes. And I was cast because someone at the Beeb had said, oh, you should see Carol Cleveland, blah, blah, blah. So I did my 4 episodes, and that's all I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't contracted for any more because the director then came on board and he had other ideas, other ladies. He wanted to get different ladies in each episode. But by then, the Pythons decided that they really liked me. They liked what I was doing, thought I fitted in extremely well, and they put their big Python foot down, as it were, and said, no, we want Carol. So she's the one. So it's really down to them. I mean, they're the ones I have to thank for becoming the Python girl, or the 7th Python, as I'm sometimes called.
Sometimes, yes, I have heard that term. What was the first sketch that you worked on, or did you audition for them first?
No, I didn't have to audition because they'd seen all this other stuff. Right. But I do remember exactly the first sketch. I didn't say very much. I made a sound. A little lamb. So the first thing I ever uttered was before I plummeted from a tree. And this was a very silly sketch about, you see a farmer talking to a sort of yokel, rather a city gent talking to a yokel farmer at a fence. And in the background you hear all these sheep plummeting, going, "Bah, bah." And they're trying to fly. They're up in the trees and they're trying to fly, and they plummet. And every now and then a little lamb going splattering to the ground. And that was the very first sketch I did. Okay. And then the next sketch I didn't say anything again. I just giggled a lot. And that was the marriage guidance counselor sketch. So all you heard then was me behind a screen going which John Cleese particularly loved, and used my giggle as often as they possibly could after that. But they did give me words. Eventually I got words, so it progressed.
Was it a big thing? Did they say, okay, today we're giving you words, or was, I mean, I'm joking.
Yeah, but today, Carol, you've won words. You've shown us, okay. Well, they were always apologizing, actually, because they never felt they had enough to offer me. And Michael, particularly, was always coming up and saying, I'm sorry, Carol, we don't have more for you to do, but we're just not very good at writing roles for women, which they weren't. I think they were grammar school boys, They went to school with girls and with boys rather, and I don't think they knew much about girlies. So the only kind of roles they could think of were either the silly old women,
the old women, the
pepper pots, which they played themselves so well, or silly young girls. That's for them. There was either silly old or silly young, and that was it. There was nothing in between. So I was the silly young. But they did do their best to squeeze me in wherever they could. I mean, we were doing one sketch one day while we were sitting around doing the reading of the sketches beforehand, and they realized they were a man short in a jungle sequence sketch, and they were going to call one of their regular sort of, they had a repertory of actors in. And I said, no, we got Carol, let's use Carol. So they just put the khaki shorts on me and the pith helmet, and stuck a great big moustache on my face, and I still had the false eyelashes and the lipstick. So there was, obviously I was a female, but there was me with this moustache talking like that, very deep voice.
It's so Python. That totally works.
Yeah, so I played, old ladies and nuns and fellas and whatever they could, wherever they could put me in, they did. So.
What's your favorite Python sketch?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, obviously the classics, all the classics everybody else loves, the Silly Walks and Spanish Inquisition and all those, and Dead Parrot, obviously. But then there's so many others. There's so many others that spring to mind that people can't remember so well. Like I remember way back in the beginning, I loved a sketch which involved all the fellas dressing up as mice. And it was like, that's right, yes, that's the one. It was like this secret club, and they all had to they dressed as mice, but they're all quite embarrassed by it all. And you see them being interviewed with, obviously, in shadow, so they're not recognized. And there's John talking about, and he said, well, what do you do at these gatherings, these parties, And he said, well, we sort of squeak a lot, and then we get onto the, we start with the soft cheese, and then we get onto the hard cheese, and I just thought that was hysterically funny. But the favorite sketch that I was in was the Scot of the Sahara, which of course was the setting up of the Scot of the Antarctic. For me, that was the first role that I really could sort of, show what I could do, and it was great fun playing vanilla whore in the trench, and so I loved that. For me, that was the favorite one that I was in.
And you have some pictures here of, is this your wedding? You've got a wedding?
Yes, I have this very popular photograph of these. It's got 5 of the pythons there, all but Terry Gilliam, and I'm lying across the lap there in what looks like a white dress, but it's a black and white picture. In fact, it's pale yellow, and it is in fact my wedding day.
What was your wedding like, having all those people attending? In terms of just being like the regular guys, like, oh, that table's the Python table. It must have been insane.
Well, it was quite a small affair, and in fact, the picture is taken aboard a little boat. It was a little barge where we had the reception. But this was early days. I got married during the early part of the first series.
Okay.
So it was very early days, and the guys all came, which was lovely. And so they weren't that well known at that. We were still just making a name for ourselves then. The early days, and the picture is great because they've all got this long hair and things. It's a bit dating, but it's fun. And there's Michael looking definitely drunk. His eyes are all glazed over, and the tie's all over the place, which is very unlike Michael because he's usually pretty neat. And bit of a giveaway there.
You see him in a little casual setting.